Smurfy greetings, everyone. It is I, Helgier, and I want to take the time to talk about this. The Village Behind the Wall, Volume 3. Let me have to adjust the camera. There we go. I can't zoom this out any further. It's a big book, but it is a big book nonetheless. So, what I had requested from you, my viewing audience, when I showed off the revealing of this, was to rate this story on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. And I'm going to give my reviews about The Village Behind the Wall, Volume 3. So, if you agree with or disagree with anything that I may have to say, please do so in the comment section below, as well as give your rating of 1 to 5 stars of The Village Behind the Wall, Volume 3 in the comment section below. So, that being said, let's take a moment to talk about this book. When I first showed off that this was coming out on the 11th of January, which was this Tuesday, someone in the community asked, why did it look like The Village Behind the Wall Volume 2's cover? And my joking answer was probably because they were going to do an omnibus. And lo and behold, they did an omnibus. Now, to those of you who are unfamiliar with manga or comics, an omnibus is essentially, let me just adjust the camera here, an omnibus is essentially where they take multiple volumes of a particular series and put it all in one book. Usually about 3 or more. And it's the reason why this is called the Smurfs Tales instead of the Smurfs Village Behind the Wall like the first 2 volumes. Because in this book, you get not only Volume 3, but you get the previous 2 volumes in it as well. So, to those of you who did not get the first 2 Villages Behind the Wall graphic novels, but you got this, you're in good spirits because, again, it gives you Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 in this book. Plus, 2 extra stories of our blue buddies, and one of Johann and Peewit, because we have to give the vintage to Johann and Peewit, as that is where the Smurfs originated from. So, I personally am not happy with the fact that they did this as an omnibus. I would have rather just had Volume 3 of the story. But, based on everything else, and certain people don't get these books, the first 2 volumes, well, this is a good start for them. Also, it should be noted that this was supposed to have been released last year, before the end of 2021. As Peyo said that they would do on their Instagram, well, not Peyo, but the Smurfs official Instagram page said that this book was supposed to release at the end of 2021. Now, the saddest part about that is, even though this is the 3rd volume of the book, we're behind everyone in France. Alright? It has been about 2 years since Volume 3 released in French. And in that 2 years' time, not only is The Village Behind the Wall Volume 4 already completed, but they are working on The Village Behind the Wall Volume 5. That's right, Volume 5 is in the works currently. The saddest part was, thank you, Corona, for making these limited issues, but unfortunately, you gotta keep up to your word. I get that everybody in Studio Imps is working with a mask on in front of those beautiful Cintiqs while wearing a mask. They didn't show the people wearing masks, but their Smurfs Instagram did show people working at studio imps, even during times of the Rona. You know, it sucks the fact that we didn't get this. And that's a big bummer, being pretty much 2 volumes behind the original. Normally we'd be about 1 volume behind. But, yeah. So, contrary to what the person in the community said, this is not the cover of Volume 2, The Betrayal of Smurf Blossom. This is one of 2 different covers for Volume 3. Now, as this says, The Crow in Smurfy Grove, that is essentially the name of the 3rd story. To sum it up, Gargamel, ever wanting payback from our blue friends, wants to find a way to find the village and exact his revenge. And with all of his many failed attempts, he decides, I'm going to buy a crow and use a spell to teach it how to speak, then send it off to find the village. And the 3rd story takes place with the crow, as you can tell, not only not finding Smurf's village, but finding Smurfy Grove, which has been left in the hands of the girls as Papa Smurf has invited Smurf Willow to a wonderful meeting. Of course, the crow's reception didn't go so well, but as time moved on, well, the crow shows his true colors. In this volume, one specific Smurf returns from the 1st volume of The Village Behind the Wall, and that's Smurf Honey. And Smurf Honey has a little bit more of an active role in Village Behind the Wall Volume 3 than she did in Volume 1. As a recall to Volume 1, spoiler alert to those of you who haven't read the 1st volume, she was only mentioned by name and had one small role with her beehives. But in this one, she has a more active role. And most importantly, which is what they didn't show in the 1st volume, Smurf Honey's tail is showing. And this is something that has been an interesting debate when it comes to the Smurf girls, especially with Smurfette. You know, when you look at the Smurf girls, they all wear their dresses and whatnot. You don't see their tails. During the various shots of the Lost Village, we didn't see any of the other Smurf Grove girls' tails, let alone Smurfette's. Only in certain media does Smurfette's tail actually show. Like when she's rocking her Smurf Foo outfit, you actually get to see her tail. Well, Smurf Honey, being the beekeeper of the grove, you actually do get to see her tail. An interesting thing about this is, even though this is a G-rated, well, let me look at this again. This is for all ages, right? Oh, it doesn't have a rating on there. No, it says right here. It's an all-age thing. Get this back into the shot here. There are 2 instances in the book where the Smurfs actually cuss. Yes. You gotta give the son of Pale, Terry Culliford, credit for such creative ways of making Smurfs cuss. I'm not going to tell you which ones do actually cuss in this book, but they do cuss. And it's such a creative way of doing the cussing in this story. Because you wouldn't expect the Smurfs to well, cuss. But it happens twice in Volume 3. And something that I thought happened in Volume 4, which was, I thought, a spoiler to me, actually happens in Volume 3. And I've only told one other person about this. And I'm not going to tell anyone else. One of the things that they're also trying to do with the Village Behind the Wall stories and all of the Smurfs tales in general is they're trying to tie it into the Nickelodeon cartoon series New Touch of Blue. This is evident by Grouchy Smurf's dialect. How he would normally go, I hate blah 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 blah. He goes, me? I don't like blah 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 blah. Which is how he sounds in the new cartoon. He doesn't say I hate anymore. It's me, comma, I don't like insert insert this here. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they're tying in, or why this was late to tie in the stories to the animated series on Nickelodeon, which have not finished their full first season yet. I think there's a couple more episodes left of it, because they said it was 13 episodes, and not all 13 have run. There's still, from my count, 3 episodes that have not run. Probably 4. I have to check. In addition to Smurf Honey returning, I want to address something else that many members in the community have talked about. Clumsy is not shown in this one. And they're like, some of the readers were not happy with Clumsy's non-appearance in this volume. But look back on the previous volumes. You know, in the second volume, Smurfette as well as Smurf Lily were also where they did not appear in volume 2. But seeing Smurfette back in volume 3 is very nice, as well as Smurf Lily for that matter. Now, I've read this version of volume 3 in French. I have it in French. And in addition to reintroducing Smurf Honey to all of you in the graphic novel series, we learn about 3 more girls, one of which I've already filled you in on. If you've been following my Instagram page, you already know who that is, and that is Smurf Pearl. And I like the fact that Smurf Pearl has her little issues with another girl who, thank you Imps for actually keeping the suggestion. Now, the French name for her translates to Morning Dew. And I was thinking, yay, when you guys translating this to English, can you just call her Smurf Dewdrop? But they end up calling her Smurf Dew instead, which I looked at that and I'm like, yeah, I'm 2 for 2. And then, as I said before, they have one particular Smurf that's named after a color. And the color translates into an animal called a mole. But in the English version, this Smurf girl's name is Smurf Mouse. And what struck me odd was, how do you translate mole from, how do you translate mouse from mole? And I'm like, well, then again, moles are rodents, so that kind of makes sense. So, altogether, there are a total of what? 16 girls that have been identified. I will post reference shots of Mouse and Dew on my Instagram page, as I have taken it on my ability to be sure that the Smurfy community is informed of all of the new Smurf girls as their confirmed English names are revealed. Now, all in all, what goes on in this story is rather interesting. It reminds me of something that has happened in the boys' village. And that Smurf tale is already out that has happened in the boys' village. Or should I say the main village. One of those tales actually transpires in the Grove version in this one. I'm not going to tell you what that Smurf tale is. You have to read this to figure it out, because they reference it. And it's crazy what happens there too. In the end, well, they figure out the real deal with the crow. And yeah, I'm not going to tell you how that happens, but they figure the crow out. So, keeping to my scale of things, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. You know, and the missing points aren't because of the omnibus thing. You know, for one, you know, what happens in this story, as funny as it is like, okay, you did it this way. But some of the reasons why I gave this a little bit lower of a score is because in certain parts I kind of predicted what was going to happen. Including the parts in French that I did not read. You know, you have to take into consideration what the English version does to the story inside of the French version. And finally understanding things in English without having to use Google Translate, it feels nice to know that everything that happened in here is what happened. And in light of the spoilers I got for this story, it's kind of interesting how they're taking the route. I'm not sure if this is the way Veronique wants to do it, but if this is the way how she wants to do it, the Heiress in Blue is still doing a great job with everything else. I'm looking forward to The Village Behind the Wall Volume 4, though. And as far as The Village Behind the Wall Volume 5, somewhere in France they released a sample of The Village Behind the Wall Volume 5. Now, because of NDA purposes, I can't leave you to that sample. Because as much as I like the Blue Buddies and Peo and Imps, I can't afford getting sued by them. But apparently, there's another new Smurf girl. That's right. There's another Smurf girl that has been introduced in Volume 5. And yes, I do know her name. And yes, I do have a reference shot of her. But no, because of NDA purposes, I can't tell you her name. But if you want to see her, you'll just have to wait until I post her reference shot on my Instagram page. Followers welcome. Share your thoughts on The Village Behind the Wall Volume 3 in the comment section below. Tell me if you think the omnibus was a good idea, or would you have rather had just the third story, especially if you have volumes 1 and 2 like I do. But for now, I take my goose from the oven because I'm done. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. And stay tuned for those references on my Instagram page.